But one thing I'll tell you about the Grammys itself is that the first time anybody knows who has actually won the Grammy Award is when the celebrity opens the envelope on stage. So it's impossible to find out who has won the Grammy before that.
Woof woof. Welcome to Kanha Cast. Today I'm speaking to internationally renowned musician and 3-time Grammy winner, Ricky Kej. Ricky was in Kanha Shanti Vanam for a concert and stopped by for a quick chat immediately after. Thank you, Ricky Kej, for being here with us in the Kanha studio. It's an absolute honor to welcome you here. 3-time Grammy winner and your second visit to Kanha. What do you think of this campus?
The campus is absolutely beautiful. It's my second time here. Huge honor for me to be here a second time. The last time I had performed to this very, very large youth audience, it was pretty amazing. I think over 10,000 people, and today was a nice, beautiful auditorium. In fact, the last time I did not see this auditorium, and it's such a beautifully equipped auditorium and so well made, so much of attention to detail. So it was an absolute honor to be here and to see there's so much happening on the campus, not just meditation, there's sports, there's education, there is sustainability, there's environmental consciousness, there is so many things happening in this one campus. So it's amazing to be here.
Primarily, Kanha started out as like a meditation center. Have you had a chance in any of your visits to experience meditation at Kanha as well?
Yes, of course. The last time I was here, I did a meditation session, and also I listened to a satsang of Daji. And this time also, I did a brief meditation session this morning before the concert. So that was very nice. But in my daily life, I do not practice much of meditation because of my schedule and I need to sort of switch off at times, and I understand the absolute need to practice meditation because my dad does that, and my dad does that despite his busy schedule as a doctor. And I've seen the benefits that it has brought to him in terms of health, in terms of his fitness, in terms of his mindfulness. So I would love to practice that, but it's just that the minute I start meditating, I start thinking about all these things that are pending and all these things that I need to deliver and all these ideas that I need to put down on tape and tunes and all of that stuff. So basically, I believe that one has to completely switch off, and once you pass that threshold of detaching yourself from all of these things, that is when you become victorious at doing meditation. But I haven't reached that stage yet. But maybe a few more visits to Kanha and I'll be able to get that.
Wow, you mentioned you were at a satsang with Daji. Now, our country, as we were discussing, there are lots of so-called godmen and gurus and things
Correct.
Like that. Did Daji strike you as anything out of the ordinary, or was it...
He's a very simple person, that is for sure. So there's not much fanfare, when he is walking into a room or when he's meeting people, which is very heartwarming. And it's very important that a guru is very accessible as he is. He speaks every person's language. He does not speak in riddles, and also there is a very, very strong sense of humility in him. Where when I hear a satsang of Daji, it's not like he's speaking down to people as a lot of godmen do. He's not speaking down to people, and number two, he does not have this attitude that that I know everything and you do not know anything, and this is something that we are seeing very prevalent right now all over the world, not just in India but everywhere in the world. When it is a spiritual guide or it is a MBA self-help guru or something like
Absolutely.
that, everybody is speaking down to people, whereas Daji is in fact quite the contrary. That you feel that he's a person that you can have a meal with, and you can benefit very, very strongly from a conversation with him.
So true, so well put. Now, your whole method of making music, your music is actually, you say you don't practice much meditation, but your music is, some of your tracks are very meditative in themselves, So is the process for you also like a kind of a focused process, or is it something that you are constantly finding inspiration in a very active process?
No, it's actually quite a passive process because I only make music that I feel strongly about. So it's a focused process for people who are working on a deadline, or people who need to deliver something based on the sensibilities of somebody else. Like, for example, working on a Bollywood movie. When a composer is working on a Bollywood movie or a Bollywood song, it's usually on the sensibilities of the director or the actor or the producer. And then you're constantly trying to think in the manner that they think. Or you're trying to figure out what are the current trends. And you're trying to crack a code, of trying to have a hit song. Whereas for me, it's all about that whenever I'm inspired, I make a song. And the struggle is more about, rather than trying to make something which fits a wide audience, my struggle is about trying to find an audience that agrees with me. And that's what niche music is all about. That you make a piece of music that you truly love and you love listening to and you're absolutely proud of it. And then you should not be crying that the whole world is not listening to it. You have to find that specific audience that agrees with you, and that audience will stick with you forever. They won't be an audience like what a Bollywood composer enjoys, where they enjoy that audience for just a brief period of a couple of years, and then the audience moves on to the next best thing, or the next new thing, or the next flavor of the month. Whereas, and that's the beauty of creating music for niche audiences like jazz music or Hindustani classical music. If a person becomes your fan, they want to know what you're doing for the rest of your life. And that's what I enjoy, that I've got a specific set of fans all over the world, and these fans are constantly waiting for me to come out with my next product. And they want to know exactly what I'm doing musically and stuff like that. So I guess I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Yes. You spoke about niche audience. I think the example of the greatest niche audience ever created would probably be the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
Not everybody got their music.
Correct.
Not everybody dig them, but the guys who did, they were called deadheads.
Exactly.
They just followed them
Exactly.
throughout. So what would you like the Ricky Kej followers to be called?
Socially responsible followers.
And that is a big part of your music: social responsibility,
Correct.
environmental responsibility. How did you weave that into your music? Was it always a big part of your life?
So, yeah, ever since I remember, I've always been two things. I've been a musician and an environmentalist, even before I knew what the meaning of the word environmentalist was. And I remember that as a child growing up in North Carolina, because I grew up for the first 6 years of my life in America. My father is a doctor, and he was a doctor over there. And during that time, we lived in a house which was in the middle of nowhere. We were surrounded by, forest areas, wooded areas. And we would have a whole lot of creepy, crawly animals entering our home on a regular basis. And I was always taught by my teachers and by my well-wishers and by elders that, as soon as you see a lizard or you see a snake or you see one of these dangerous animals like a insect or a frog or whatever, then either run away from them or just step on them and kill them immediately. And my question to them always was that if you're supposed to kill them the minute we see them, then why do they exist in the first place? They obviously have some sort of purpose. And now we know that that every single species of animal, no matter how seemingly insignificant, is a very important part of our ecosystem. And it's this delicate balance of nature and ecosystems that keeps all of us alive. So these were the questions that would keep me awake at night. And that slowly transitioned into me, combining these two things of music and nature and creating music on nature. Because at the end of the day, how did music start? Music started off as sounds of nature. Sounds of the animals, sounds of the birds, sounds of the trees, sounds of the water drops. And then it transformed into human beings imitating those sounds with their voice, and then pulling out objects from nature and making musical instruments like bamboo flutes and boxes of seeds and animal skin for percussion instruments. And it's only for the last 1,000 years that we have notes and scales and rags, and music has actually become academic. But music is nature. And if you go to any indigenous population anywhere in the world, you'll see the huge intersectionality between music and nature, because for them, music and nature is one entity. So that's what it became for me, that I'm not an environmentalist, I'm not a musician, I'm just like, me, and, and both these things are sort of blended into each other. And so I cannot see myself as being like two roles of an environmentalist and a musician. It's just one thing that I do.
Wow. Now, you mentioned that your music caters to a very niche audience. You make what you love. But it couldn't always have been that way, because when musicians start out, there is a struggle to get acceptance, So did you face that too?
So when I started off my musical career, I did commercials for television and radio. So, and in a span of about 13, 14 years, I did more than 3,500 of them. I was very successful. In fact, I would say one of the most successful in the world ever. And I did more than 3,500 commercials, as I said, and for every brand you can imagine, whether it's Google or Microsoft or Airtel or Vodafone or Lufthansa, Air India, every brand and the competitor, I was creating music for different markets all over the world. So I used to work very, very hard during those days. I used to wake up in the morning at 7. I used to get a brief from an Indian client. I used to wrap up that brief by about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. Then I would get a call from a European client, wrap that up by about 9 o'clock. And then at 9 o'clock, I would get a call from an American client, wrap that up about 2 o'clock, sleep for 5 hours, start back again. So it was a very hectic life. But I am very proud of those days simply because, as they say, if you work out in a gym, the more you work out, the better you get at working out. It was the same with music. I was composing a different piece of music every single day, sometimes multiple pieces of music. Like yesterday, I would have composed a Tamil folk jingle. Today, I would do a Celtic jingle. Tomorrow, I would do let's say a hip hop jingle or a heavy metal jingle. So the thing is that I would be on my toes for different genres of music, different musicians around the world. And I would, and these musicians would find their way into my music. So that's why my music does not have a particular genre of music. It's so many influences because of my days, my advertising days. And also every day you work with a different creative professional. So working with this creative professional, understanding their motivations and all of that stuff. And so I love doing that, but I would not like doing a movie simply because a movie is a credited medium, where your name is attached to the movie, sure, and the songs become a part of your personality. So let's assume that there is a misogynistic item song or a dance bar song kind of a thing. That's going to be attached to your reputation and it's going to be attached to you for the rest of your life. Yeah. Whereas advertising was not a credited medium. Nobody gave a damn about who created the piece of music. It was so that's the reason why when it comes to advertising music, usually the clients don't go to big names. They go to talented people. So that is what. And I'm glad that I got so much of work because people felt that I had it in me to actually create this piece of music. But that's the thing, that I do not want to do Bollywood music for the simple reason that music has to be created as an art. And I believe that what happens nowadays is that it's not treated as an art form, it's treated as a commercial form. Like, for example, an artist like Vincent van Gogh, if he wanted to create a new painting, I cannot imagine him going to all the neighboring art galleries and saying that, okay, what is everybody doing? Let me do something similar. And he would dig deep into his own soul and he would make a piece of art, and which represented him. And if I wanted to know more about Vincent van Gogh, I would not read a book about him. I would look at all his paintings and I would judge him based on his paintings. But now you have music composers who constantly talk about gender equality in India. They talk about social justice and all of that. And they're making songs like Sheila Ki Jawani, and they're making songs like Wakam, Wakapam, and all of these songs, which are so misogynistic. So they objectify women in such bad ways. And, and these are normalized right now. So this is something that I do not want to get into under any condition, because I would rather be lesser known for songs that define me as a person and define my legacy, hopefully, rather than being extremely well known for songs that do not define me at all.
Wow. That takes some courage to stand up to the system, because, of course, the payoffs are huge, When you were doing the advertising work, the jingles and things like that, for many people it would be like a very comfortable gig. The money is coming in. It's why do I foray into my own music, which is uncharted, was there a lot of uncertainty there, or did you always keep that flame alive?
No, actually it was a sudden decision. I can say the main reason for doing this was that it sort of struck me around 2013, 2014, that these big brands have understood the power of music. So much so that they're ready to spend a few $1,000s on me to create a piece of music for them, and a few $1 million to actually air this music on television and radio. So they understand that music is a very powerful language, not just for communicating a message, but for retaining that message deep in the consciousness of a listener. And in their case, it's always a message of sales, because they're trying to sell something. Like the jingles and the songs that we learned during our childhood are songs we never forget because it just sticks in our head. And they understood that, and they were basing their multi-million-dollar campaigns and their the entire sales of their products on music. So that is when I realized that there are so many things that I feel strongly about the environment, about social justice, about society in general, about the refugee crisis and things like that. And I thought that that I should be harnessing the power of music, and creating music which I feel strongly about. So it was pretty much a sudden step. And the second thing, from a personal perspective, is that when you're doing commercials, you do not end up doing concerts simply because a client can contact you today and tell you to do this particular jingle and it's fully approved. And about 2 or 3 years later, they can come back to you saying that we need a small change in it because we've made a small change to our product. And you have to be available. And if you're not available, you've lost that client for life. So people who tour, it is pretty much impossible for them to be in advertising. And I wanted to do concerts. I wanted to meet audiences face to face. So that's the reason why I had to quit advertising. And also for the reason that I mentioned, that I wanted to do music which is not based on somebody else's sensibilities, but on my own sensibilities and my own beliefs.
Wow. There's also a trope around the music industry that, the artist is always at odds with the record label.
Yeah.
The creative freedom of the artist is hampered by the record label. Did you ever face any of that?
Of course I did, many a times, because during the time when I was doing my advertising music, during those 13, 14 years, I was also making albums, and those albums were based on my own philosophies and my own beliefs and all of that stuff. So that was like, my outlet where I could do things that I believed in, but I wasn't traveling and performing this in places. I was just making albums, and I was signed up with various labels. So there's this one label which I was working with, an American label, and I made this piece of music which was a Hindustani classical fusion album. And I put in a lot of effort into it. I called it India Fusion, the name of the album. Got some really good Hindustani classical musicians to play on the album. And I put my heart and soul into the album, recorded it, and I gave it to the record label. And during those days, there was not much internet. So I had to send the master CD to USA. They loved it. And they said that once we release it, we'll send you a bunch of copies. So then, and there was no iTunes or Amazon Music or Spotify and all of that stuff. So you just had to wait for them to send you the CDs. So about 2 months later, I get a box of CDs and I'm really excited, and I open up the CDs, and it turns out that there's an album called Sutra Lounge in there. And I'm wondering that, what is this album? Why did they send me this album? And then I open up the shrink wrap and I open up the album and I see my name all over it. And then I play the CD and I realize it's my songs, the India Fusion album. But the whole album is called Kama Sutra Lounge, and each of those 10 songs is named after a different position.
Jeez.
So that is what, of course, the album was extremely successful. And fortunately, I still make money off that album on royalties. I make more out of that album 18 years later than I do of my latest albums.
Yeah, I think I have it. I have to be honest.
A lot of people have it because it's very good instrumental music, and the Taj group of hotels, they play that album till today. They play that album in all their hotels.
Yeah, on loop.
On loop they play it, and plenty of other people play it. So it's become really successful, that album, and it's my most successful album, unfortunately, even more successful than the Grammy-winning albums.
So among the Grammy-winning albums, of course, Divine Tides is been received so well, and you're working with a legend. Yeah. How was that? Were you intimidated when this collaboration came about? And you worked with a lot of your legends, I suppose.
I did, yeah.
Idols.
But this guy was different, Stuart Copeland. The thing is that, my first Grammy was in 2015, and for 7 years after that.
That was Winds of Samsara.
Winds of Samsara, correct. So for 7 years after that, I was constantly, thinking about a follow-up to that album. And I kept, I had a lot of ideas in my head, but I wasn't actually recording them by then I had a relentless touring schedule. Like between 60 to 70 concerts a year, 13 to 14 countries a year, 40 to 50 cities. So it was quite a crazy schedule. And but then the pandemic hit in 2020, and all of us were forced to stay indoors. And that is when I started recording the first pieces of music that would go on to becoming Divine Tides. And very quickly I realized that I needed a very strong collaborator. And so then I thought I'll get in touch with my legend, Stuart Copeland, because I grew up listening to his music, his posters on my walls and all of that stuff. He pretty much shaped my career, just through listening to him and listening to his movie soundtracks, because he's composed more than 50 movie soundtracks as a composer, won awards all over the world and things like that. And so I got in touch with him, and I'm like, at the worst, he'll say no. But he said yes. He listened to the music and he replied quite quickly, and he said that let's go on this journey together and let's create this album. So we created the album Divine Tides together, worked on it for about a year, and hundreds of Zoom calls, hundreds of WhatsApp calls and messages and emails and all of that stuff, and remote recording sessions. Released the album. Album was very successful, won a whole lot of awards, got nominated for the Grammy, and I've never even met him in person. Like we've only interacted, but we've gotten very, very close, like almost like an older brother. And but I've never met him in person. So then we were supposed to meet for the Grammys for the first time. But then he had a concert in Nashville a week before the Grammys. So he told me, why don't you come to Nashville and let's catch up there. So I went for his concert, watched his concert. It was amazing. Then went to the after party. Over there we met for the first time. We hugged. It was a very, very emotional moment for me. After all that, we hugged each other and we spoke for about a good 1 hour that day. And then after that, I went to Los Angeles. I hung around with him over there. And then we went to Las Vegas for the Grammys. And then we ended up winning the Grammys. But one thing I'll tell you about the Grammys itself is that the first time anybody knows who has actually won the Grammy Award is when the celebrity opens the envelope on stage. So it's impossible to find out who has won the Grammy before that. So you have to attend the event, sit down and look good, and they call out the winner. And if it's you, you go up on stage and collect the trophy. If it's not you, you just have to sit down and pretend it does not bother you.
Oh man, so that's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. So we were sent an email that in the previous years of the Grammys, for the acceptance speech, they would give you 2 minutes. Okay, they would give you 2 minutes, and any number of people can speak. Like if you've got a band of 5 people, any number of people can speak, but you've got 2 minutes. And at the end of 2 minutes, they will shut off your mic. So because it's a live telecast, so they can't afford to go overtime, like how they do in Indian functions, So the thing is that they cannot afford to do that because it's a live broadcast. So, but they sent us an email saying that in the past years it was 2 minutes and any number of people. This year, we've made it 45 seconds and only one person can speak. That's it. If a second person comes in front of the mic, we're going to shut off the mic. Wow. So that's how it was. So we immediately decided that Stuart is the one who's going to speak because in my own vanity, I felt that it would be better if Stuart praises me rather than me praising myself. So then Stuart agreed and he decided he's going to speak. We went up, we won the Grammy. We went up on stage and Stuart made a quick joke and then he said that this Grammy Award is all about Ricky and he's the one who's put this album together. So Ricky, take the mic. And I was like, whoa, I've not prepared a speech, number one. And number two is that they're going to shut off a mic. And then Stuart looks at the conductor, the person who is in charge of shutting off the mic and playing music and drowning your voice away. He looks at the conductor and he's a legend, right, Stuart? So he looked at the conductor and said, don't you dare. and then he told me, Ricky, go and speak whatever you want to speak. And I spoke and the whole time Stuart was constantly looking at the conductor. Don't you dare, don't you dare. And then I gave my speech and we walked off. So that's the kind of relationship that we shared. And that's the markings of a legend who's so comfortable giving the spotlight to somebody else and giving the stage to somebody else, because he's so comfortable in his own skin that, that I know what I'm capable of, So
that's an incredible story. That's an incredible story. I wish we could carry on talking, but I know you've got a flight, so we have to wrap this up.
Sure.
So I just want to ask you, what's on the horizon for Ricky Kej?
Another album with Stuart. So we're going to be releasing that in mid-August. I think on August 18th is when we are releasing another album. It's a very interesting album. Can't talk about it, but it's going to be something that's quite legendary.
You'd have to kill us if you spoke about it.
But it's going to be, it's the biggest album I've ever worked on in my life. Orchestras from all over the world, choirs from all over the world, singers. It's a huge, huge album. So I'm very excited about that. And of course, constant touring and August itself, I think I've got about 14 or 15 concerts in August. So it's going to be fun, yeah.
Great. Just one last thing I wanted to touch on, because we were recently going to buy headphones for, as you can see, these guys are old. So we were going to buy 10 sets of headphones. And we were looking online and we came across Kej by Kej.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Suddenly from a musician, you're also into the electronics, into the engineering of music.
So that actually came across, again, serendipity, as they say. I'm a huge collector of headphones because I'm always looking for that perfect sound. So I've got a collection of easily about 40 or 50 different headphones, and I use different headphones for different moods because no headphone is exactly the sound that I want. The exact reproduction of sound that I want. Because when I'm in the studio, I want a headphone which exactly reproduces what is being recorded. And there are some very good quality headphones that do that very well, and I've got those headphones. Very expensive ones, some of them. But then when I'm listening to headphones for leisure, there is a particular sound that I like. And I don't want it to be perfect. I wanted to have the slight imperfections. I wanted to make the music sound a little better. But at the same time, not have a very seductive bass, which almost drowns out the rest of the music or tickles your ears or whatever.
True.
Which is very prevalent in today's headphones. So, but there was no plans to take anything forward about it. So a friend of mine, a guy called Vaibhav Mahajan, he runs this very, very big time, garments export company kind of a thing. Very successful person. My school friend, we've been in school together since we were in the 2nd grade. He once called me up out of the blue and he said that, I want to start a new business. I want to start a headphone business. Would you like to help me out? I'm like, I've got ideas. I've got very, very good ideas. And then we decided to start this brand together. Kej by Kej it is called. And the headphones are available on Amazon. It's available only in India because we want to go slow. And we want to create a brand. We don't want to sell millions of headphones. We want to create just like my music, we want to create a niche brand for people who are true connoisseurs of music and who want to listen to music on a very, very high quality headphone. And at the same time, we will only have one model at a time.
Wow.
We're not going to have a whole website filled with 20 to 30 or 60 models and different price ranges. We're just going to have one model. And people can just buy that. That's all. And when we refresh the model, the previous model will be unavailable.
So
and then we're just
single malt of headphones.
It's
a single malt.
Single malt of headphones. Just one headphone. That's it. And because I do not believe that my preference of sound can be on multiple headphones. If it's my preference of sound, it'll have to be only on one headphone.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ricky. We're out of time. It was wonderful. Thank you for taking the time out to sit down with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And look forward to having you back in Kanha Shanti Vanam very soon.
Thank you. I too look forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Kanha Cast. Please follow and subscribe to Kanha Cast on Spotify, YouTube and Instagram. Until next time, woof woof.